The reason why you shouldn't consider that is because you should consider the success of an applicant. Because of affirmative action, Black Americans graduate from law school at the bottom 25% of their classes, largely speaking. And we don't want that. We want Black students to succeed. We want every student to succeed, low-income students to succeed. But you have to put them in scenarios, in places where they're likely to succeed. And lowering your standard to admit somebody of a socioeconomic status or race would not help them do that. In fact, it would harm their graduation rate and excellence.
Well, as the case also points out, the standard isn't necessarily lowered because students are all admitted. The question is whether race can be an added consideration, a tipping point in some of these cases.
Lowered. The standard is lowered. The standard is lowered as the student merit admissions data shows. An Asian has to score 273 points higher on the SAT to have the same chance of admission as a Black person. So the standard is lowered for Black Americans.
Kenny Xu, thank you for your perspective. We really appreciate you joining us today.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. We got to talk about this pretty amazing meltdown on MSNBC over college admissions data showing that, yes, the standards were lowered for Black people and other so-called minorities when it comes to getting into these Ivy League universities, even though the left was telling us that's not the case, right? Affirmative action just makes things fair, okay? It doesn't lower the standard for Black people and allow unqualified folks to get into universities that they have no business being at. That's not a thing, okay? It just evens the playing field for everybody. That's just simply not the case, okay? Because this data is showing that since affirmative action was overturned, now all of a sudden, a lot of these students who happen to be Black are getting rejected a lot more than they were before, which tells you everything you need to know. Now that the colleges only can consider merit, right? They can't consider race. Now you have Black students not getting in, okay? And I'm not laughing about this because, I find pleasure or joy in the fact that Black students are getting rejected from these universities. No, I'm actually sad about that. What that means is that Black people, we need to change our culture, right? Because we can compete with everybody else. It's just that we're not doing the things that we should do in regards to helping our kids learn and to compete with everybody else. But anyways, I want to react to MSNBC melting down over this new admissions data from MIT. But before we get into it, we have to have a word from the sponsor of this video, Noble Gold. Are you worried about the future of the U.S. economy? With so much uncertainty in the air, it is natural to fret about the security of your retirement savings. However, there's one asset that stands the test of time, and that is gold. For centuries, gold has been a hedge against market volatility and economic instability. With a gold IRA from Noble Gold Investments, you can harness the power of precious metals in order to secure your financial future. By rolling over your existing IRA or 401k into a self-directed gold IRA, you can enjoy the potential for long-term growth and stability. Diversify your portfolio with a tangible asset that has real value. Setting up a gold IRA with Noble Gold Investments has never been easier with its streamlined process and expert guidance. This election year, do not let the volatility and uncertainty keep you up at night. Vote for the timeless safety of gold and silver in 2024. And Noble Gold Investments will give you up to 10 1-ounce silver Trump coins or a 10-ounce silver American flag bar if you open a qualified account. Go to noblegoldinvestments.com now. That is noblegoldinvestments.com. And just remember, there's a risk with every investment and there's no guarantee of any kind.
While all eyes were on the DNC this week, MIT released some data that confirmed our worst fears about the Supreme Court. The university's incoming class will be significantly less diverse than in previous years. And that's thanks to last year's ruling that gutted affirmative action. MIT, one of the first to release enrollment data since that ruling, says its percentage of Black students dropped to 5% from 15% last year. And
wow. Okay, so let's look at this data, okay? Without the propaganda, without the spin, let's look at the data. Asian Americans, their admissions went up 7%, okay? White people, their admissions went down 1%. So basically, they stayed about the same, right? It's about even. Hispanics, 5%, they went down. Black folks, went down 10%, okay, from 15% to 5%. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? It tells you that the black people that were being admitted into MIT before, when affirmative action was in place, they were not qualified, right? They were not as qualified as their peers, mainly Asians, right? Who got a big boost, right? They got a big boost when affirmative action was overturned because they said, okay, well, we got to look at it from a race blind perspective, which is the right thing to do. We have to actually consider merit. And wow, right? Lo and behold, more Asians get in, less black folks get in. So this is proof that affirmative action was in fact discriminating against Asians, okay? They were making it a lot harder for Asians to get in than other groups of people because of their race, right? They were quite literally discriminating against Asian people because of their race. But the left thinks that that was a good thing, right? It was a good thing that Asians were being discriminated against in college admissions because of diversity, okay? Again, it's just funny how that works, right? These are the same people that claim they're fighting against racism, but yet they support a systemically racist policy that negatively impacts Asians and whites. Now, in this case right here, it seems to me that, hey, you know, whites kind of stayed the same, and you know, hey, it is what it is. But the question that people really should be asking themselves is, why is it that Asians are outperforming everybody else, right? Why is that? Well, the reason why is that we know that the culture is different. The culture of these Asian students, they come from a background where they have two-parent households and they value education, okay? From an early age, Asian parents are instilling in their kids, right? From a cultural perspective, how important education is in excelling academically, right? It's not acceptable to come home with a B, okay? You can't get a B plus, okay? You can't get an A minus, you got to get an A, right? This is the type of stuff that they do, and I'm not saying that's true for all Asians. I'm just saying this is the type of mentality that they have, okay? Anything less than excellence in academics is unacceptable, and as a result, their children perform better. It's really that simple, right? It's really that simple. That is the difference. So when you talk about having an issue with this data, having an issue with the fact that more Asian students are getting in than everybody else, that they're outperforming everybody, what you really should do is take a look at the direction of this country that we're going in regards to the cultural values, and you can find the underlying problem. And the worst part about this is that it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better, because clearly the left does not have an agenda where they value academics and education and having kids learn about things that they should be learning about in school. Okay, they want kids to be as dumb as possible so they can vote Democrat for the rest of their life and be dependent on the government, right? The Democrats are trying to dumb down children. They are the people that were responsible for learning loss during the pandemic, kids becoming dumber. So instead of addressing the main problem, the underlying problem, which is that, again, you need to place blame on the parents and also the education system for why children are failing, right? Instead of doing that, no, they rather discriminate, right? They rather be racist towards Asians, okay? And take away opportunities for them to give to people who, again, don't deserve these opportunities. It is what it is. It is what it is. The fact that black people were affected the most by affirmative action being overturned, I mean, a 10% drop, no other group of people were affected as negatively as black folks, tells you everything you need to know about the students they were letting in. And again, this is a bad thing for black people, because what happens is that if you are a so-called black doctor or black engineer or whatever, people are going to automatically think, okay, well, you didn't really earn it. And they would have every reason to believe that based off the data. So this is good. Right now, I know those 5% of black people that got into MIT, well, I know they earned it, right? I know that they didn't get the spot just because they were black, right? I know that it's merit-based, okay, that they're qualified, and that's great. That's great for those people. But those other 10%, yeah, you need to go to another institution. I'm sorry. Maybe you should go to an HBCU, right? I'm just saying. I mean, that's just what it is. That's just what it is.
The percentage of Hispanic and Latino students dropped to 11%, down from 16%. Overall, all racial and ethnic minority groups had a decrease in enrollment, except for Asian Americans, who had a 7% increase. And the university actually saw this coming. It was among several universities and colleges that signed an amicus brief to the High Court 2 years ago in support of keeping race-conscious admissions. Joining me now, Eddie Glau Jr., James S. McDonough, Distinguished Professor at Princeton University. He's also an MSNBC political analyst. Professor, it is great to see you as always. So this is not a surprise to anyone. I think when SCOTUS struck down affirmative action, you and others warned us about the impact this would have on students of color, saying that we would begin to see a kind of segregated higher education landscape.
Segregation, right? That's what they say. Segregated. What they mean is that, well, it'll just be whites and Asians, okay? And that's a problem, okay? That's a big problem. But again, these are the same people who would call you a silly person for you to suggest that leagues like the NFL and the NBA are segregated, right? Because most of the players on the field are black, right? You don't see too many Asians, okay? You don't see too many white. It's like 70% black, which is overrepresentative of the black population. Only 13% of the population is black, but yet you got 60-70% of NBA players, NFL players are black. Oh, that's a problem, right? Nobody ever says that, because in sports is always assumed that, hey, you know, the best person gets the job. Okay, if you are the best running back, best quarterback, best wide receiver, whatever, you're going to get the job. You're going to make the team. But for whatever reason, this same logic doesn't apply to academics, and I'm not entirely sure why that's the case. Again, if you're going to make an argument for affirmative action in academics, I'm not entirely sure why you wouldn't make that argument for affirmative action in sports. Oh, well, we know why, right? We know why, because these people are hypocrites, right? They have no problems with segregation when it benefits black people. But if segregation is not beneficial for black folks, now all of a sudden they want to boo-hoo whine and cry about it, right? When white people try to segregate themselves and say, hey, we want our own white-only thing, okay, just us whites, nobody else, they're boo-hoo whine and crying racism. But when black people say, hey, we want our own thing, just black people only, oh, that's celebrated as diversity, right? That's inclusion, okay? Again, it blows my mind, right? It really does.
Your initial reaction now that we have seen these initial new numbers from one university, and what are you hearing from others in academia?
Well, first of all, it's great to see you, Eamon. We knew this was going to happen, as you said. I suspect that the data will be similar at the other Ivies, my own institution, Princeton, Harvard, Yale, Dartmouth, Penn, Cornell, and the like. We should probably see this across the board in terms of elite institutions and you know, ranking or top state public institutions. We knew this. We knew the data. We saw what happened in California. We know just 10 years after Prop 209 was passed, only 96 freshmen, black freshmen, were admitted to a class of over 4,000 at UCLA. We saw a 44% decline between 2006 and 2022 at the University of Michigan. And so this was, in fact, the expected outcome. And what's so tragic about it, there are those folk who are reading this outcome as an example of what happens when merit is taken as the principal deciding factor, when in fact, this is actually proving the opposite, Amy.
Wow, amazing stuff. Listen to this logic from this guy, right? Listen to the logic from this guy. Okay, so apparently when you only consider merit and black people get rejected, well, that's an example of how the system is not operating based on merit, right? What is meritocratic to these people is race-based admissions that have nothing to do with actual merit. Again, it's just funny how that works. These people are ass backwards in regards to how they think. In fact, this professor right here probably benefited from affirmative action, okay? And the reason why I know this is because even before looking him up, I was like, this guy is not a PhD in anything that actually matters, like a hard science, like, I don't know, engineering, biology, math, finance, anything like that. No. He's not a PhD. He can't be a PhD in something that actually really matters. No. Come to find out, he works in the African-American Studies Department at Princeton, right? That's where he works, okay? The only place that it seems like a black PhD could actually get a job at an Ivy League, right? They have to work in woke studies, okay? Woke studies, which is why they try so hard to protect it, right? Something that, in my opinion, probably shouldn't even be taxpayer funded. I mean, why are we spending taxpayer dollars for people to study gender, right, and feminism? It doesn't make sense, okay? It's a complete waste of time. But my point is this. Individuals like this guy, instead of gaslighting and lying to black folks and to America, he should be telling the truth. He should be telling black people, if you're upset about this, then work harder, study harder, compete, okay? That's how you fix the problem. The way that you fix the problem is not boohoo, whining, and crying. It's to step your game up. Quit your bitching and actually go out there and work just as hard as they're working, if not harder, in order to beat them. That should be the mentality, okay? That is what he should be telling folks. But, of course, he's not going to say that because of the hard bigotry of low expectations that comes from the left in regards to black folks. They don't think that black people are smart enough to compete against everybody else. They don't think that black people can work as hard as everybody else. And this is why they have such low expectations, right? This is why they boohoo, whine, and cry over things like merit-based admissions, which, as you can see, rewards those who work the hardest and who actually earn it, right? But these people don't want to earn it, okay? They don't want to earn it. This is why they melt down so much over conservatives saying, hey, we just want equal rights, right? We want equality, which means no DEI, okay, and no affirmative action. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.